Okay, it's 2 o'clock. Thank you. I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome everybody, those watching online and those that are here today. Welcome to the first Waterfront Stewardship Committee meeting. Again, I just want to say thank you to the committee for being here today, not just today, but into the future. We've got a couple of years here together. I know it's not an easy thing to do to step up and be a part of these committees. And I just wanted to express my gratitude. I really appreciate you being here today. I know that we have a wealth of knowledge and experience on this committee, and I'm very much looking forward to learning from all of you. So thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge with respect that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, and we are honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. So just wanted to inform everyone there are options for public participation. So we have some people participating online. You can attend the meetings in person, electronically, and also by written submission to corporate services. Today, we are going to be doing a lot of listening today. So it's an opportunity for all of us to get to know each other, get a little bit of background on who we are, what we plan to bring to the table, and also just to get an update from staff on where we're at with the waterfront plan. So today we're going to be doing a lot of absorbing of information. We encourage everybody to ask questions, offer up information, but I would ask respectively that we really take today to learn from staff. And then at the next meeting, we do plan on diving deeper into the details. So there'll be a lot more opportunity to really get into the thick of things. So again, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to do a roll call. So we have Councillor Grove, Farley Cates, Glenn Willing is here. Forgive me if I don't want to butcher the name. Is it Niam? Ryan?
It's Neve.
Neve.
Yeah, it's Irish.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll try to make sure I say it right. Rick McKay is here. Sarah Gibbons is also here today. Regrets Chris Ling from Royal Roads, and Sean from Parks Canada is not. Is he online? No. So if I can, I would just like to start at the far right of the table here. And I thought this would be just a really good opportunity, if you don't mind, just, a brief introduction, who you are, what your background is, and any other fun stuff that you want us to know about you would be great. I'm just going to so it's going to take me a minute to get used to the microphone. So when you are asked to speak or when you want to speak, if you just press your mic button, and I'll do my best not to.
Well, once again, I'm Farley Cates. I'm pleased to be here today, and hope we can provide some solid advice that be turned into some definitely concrete actions. I'm a resident of Ocean Boulevard, so I have a direct interest in what goes on. As do my neighbors. We're a pretty tight-knit group along Ocean Boulevard and just behind in the environs. My background is I'm a retired city planner, project manager, development consultant. So there's a lot I feel I bring forward to this, especially as a retired city planner who's worked on countless basic planning statements and development plans and official community plans, to the extent that I really don't want to look at another one in my life. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you. Oh.
I'm a wildlife biologist. I'm a graduate from Royal Roads University with a master's degree. My interest mainly lies in marine mammal biology and ecology. but I have a passion for the ocean and watersheds, and I look forward to making a difference in the community for the environment and every animal that needs our help that calls that environment home.
I'm Rick McKay. I'm retired, as you can probably tell. And my background was I was in mechanical engineering. I ran power plants, legislative buildings, central heating plant, and the hospitals. And have a lot of experience in that end, from mechanical and working with structural engineers and all of them to build buildings and what have you. My passion comes from, I was one of the very few people that actually lived on a swimboat lagoon. And I lived down there in the early 50s. The building isn't there anymore. It was a guardhouse on the north end lagoon side of the lagoon bridge. And the big house, or the pub was at the time, my uncle was the caretaker for the entire Cobourg Peninsula and Port Rod Hill at that time. So I have always had an intrinsic interest and passion about the Esquimalt Lagoon, knowing the history and what went on in the past. And I think that will offer something to this committee, especially explaining away what went on down there and separate fact from fiction. And I look forward to working with this august group. And hopefully we're going to get some traction and finally do something down there for the betterment of Colwood. And thank you.
Okay, I think we'll move down to Mr. Willing there if you want to do a little brief introduction.
Oh, thank you, Misty. My name is Glenn Willing. I was a resident of Langford for 70 some years, 74, I guess. And now I'm a resident of Colwood. I live over by Royal Bay on Grattan Road. My career was actually just down the hill. From there, I spent 42 years with construction aggregates. So a lot of my life down there was spent on the water. I used to load barges for Seattle, Vancouver, Alaska, or wherever. And so I saw the water every day. And last year, or 3 years, I think I had 3 years on this committee prior to this year. And I'm very happy to be back again. And it was a lovely little thing in the windy day last week when we were down on the water and received the nice grant from the federal government. And so I have an interest in the beach. I always have. And I witnessed what the changes that have gone on. And I'm looking forward to another term. I think it's another 4 years. I think it'll be my second pension by then. But anyway, it's nice to be with a new group of faces and some faces that have come out of the past. And I hope it's all systems go and we evolve. Thank you.
Okay, and I think we have, again, it's Naimi?
It's
Neve.
It's like if you remember, it's like Steve, but a girl's name and with an N.
Perfect.
I'm originally from Ireland, hence the name. So my name is Neve. I am a marine biologist. I am currently on maternity leave. But my regular day-to-day, I specialize in impact assessment for marine infrastructure projects, mostly along the coast. A lot of stuff on northern Vancouver Island, randomly enough. But yeah, I do a lot of impact assessment, permitting with federal, municipal, and provincial bodies, and then environmental management and compliance for when projects get built. So yeah, I kind of wanted to dip my toes in. I spend a lot of time down on Ocean Boulevard with my family. So yeah, I thought there was something I could bring to the table. And I'm sorry I can't be there. I have a fairly mobile 8-month-old on the floor here, so I apologize if I'm dipping up and down.
Great, thank you, Neve. To my left, I have Councillor Grove. Wanna chat a little? Oh, yeah, you should need me to do that.
I need the break. Yeah, so when you hit your button, if the green goes flashing, means you're next. If it's green solid, it means you're in the queue. And the machine will flash you when you're next. And when you hit the button again, or rather than the chair hits the button, it goes red means go. Just to really mess with your mind. Anyway, I'm David Grove. Thank you, Colwood Council. And I've been in the neighborhood almost 30 years. My wife and I had Royal Bay Bakery. It was Scandia Bakery at one time. We're not Scandinavian, so we changed the name. The developers asked permission to use the name Royal Bay, and we said, well, can't really trademark a place name, can you? But anyway, it was nice of them to ask. But that's the developers got a big part of the waterfront, which is why I'm thinking of it. And we were doing the parks plan thing last night, so that's a big deal. I'd like to also mention, I know Glenn, he was by funny quirk, my first landlord when we bought the bakery in '95. And for 6-7 years, and now he's got his nice retirement home where that little house was that we lived, and we got to know Glenn. He looked after us. He does know every square inch of the waterfront, I think. And Farley, I know a little bit through the arts community, and I'm happy to meet some new people. And happy to see the staff here. Thank you for your time and all the good work that was brought to these committees. And I'm looking forward to this with the money we have to actually make something happen. And all we need to do is make sure it's done well and right. And we've got a fabulous start, in my opinion. So thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be a part of this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Misty Olson, also council on Colwood. I've been in Colwood now in my home for 9 years. I have 2 kids that go to schools in the district here. I'm an entrepreneur in my private life, so I have multiple roles. This is so far one of my favorites. So again, just wanted to thank everybody for being here from corporate services and staff and everybody that's presenting. So I guess we can call the meeting to order. April 27th. It is now 12 minutes after 2. We have a recommendation that the agenda of the Waterfront Stewardship Committee meeting of April 27, 2023 be adopted as presented. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Great. All in favor? Great. Excellent. Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay. Is there any discussion on this? No. Great. So public participation. Do we have anybody? Nobody that wants to participate? No. Okay, so we don't have anybody online. Okay. Okay, so new business. Review of the Waterfront Stewardship Committee terms of reference. So everybody got a copy of the terms of reference in their agenda package that was handed out to us. So I'm just gonna take a minute before we have any discussion on the terms of reference, just to go over a couple of highlight some key points on here that I think it's important to just reiterate. So the Waterfront Stewardship Committee, the committee is an advisory committee of council established to provide advice to council regarding stewardship of Colwood's waterfront from north of Coal Island to the south adjacent to Far Hill Road. The purpose. This terms of reference will guide the committee in their role to advise and provide recommendations to council on matters related to waterfront stewardship. The committee shall provide advice and make recommendations to council on the following: implementation of the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan, shoreline sediment management planning, coordination of open space plans with Parks Canada and other interested landowners, coordination with environmental stewardship groups, preliminary review of phased detailed designs for the waterfront, and mitigation of risks associated with coastal flooding, including tsunami and sea level rise. So I just wanted to take an opportunity after each point to, have any discussion on any of these or any questions at all from anyone.
We're here.
Just a minute here, let me. There you go.
The coordination with environmental stewardship groups, who's that?
I will, Mr. Moorhill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's several groups that are directly involved in stewardship issues at Squamish Lagoon. Probably first and foremost is the Squamish Lagoon Stewardship Initiative that's administered by the Capital Regional District. There is multiple other groups involved in Colwood, such as our scenic environmental group. So those are the types of groups I think we're thinking about when this was integrated into the terms of reference.
Anybody else have any questions for staff or? Oh, okay. So I'm just going to review the authority. The committee's function is advisory to council. Their role is to review, comment, and make recommendations to council on issues related to waterfront stewardship. The committee has no continuing advocacy role concerning their findings and recommendations. Any initiatives proposed by the committee that have resource or financial implications, including staff time, require council approval. Does anybody have any questions regarding the authority? No. Okay. Does anybody want to have any discussion on the terms of reference at all? Are we all comfortable with? Yeah. Okay. Seem to be good. Okay, so do I need to make a motion to accept the terms of reference? No, I don't. Great. Okay. So, so as I mentioned earlier, we have several presentations this afternoon. So really it's going to be a great opportunity to absorb information on what's currently happening. So overview of current waterfront projects. We've got 4 presenters. So is Ian. Okay. So I'll let Ian take over here for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an opportunity for the committee to hear about some of the projects that will be coming forward to this body over the next 12 months. You know, the Waterfront Stewardship Committee is taking on some of the projects that were initiated under recommendations of the former Waterfront Coastal Process Committee. We thought it'd be a good idea just to get you situated with the workflow to come. So I'm joined today with several colleagues that are involved in these projects and leading respective components. Do you want to come up one at a time or? Sure. I'll just wait for the PowerPoint.
Sorry, if I can, is there a way to turn up Ian's mic a little bit? The volume seems a bit low.
I'll talk a little.
There we
closer.
go.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So we've got Paul DeGreef, our lead consultant on the Waterfront Stewardship Plan, coming to help with the overview of that project. That's the last item on the agenda. He's going to try to be here just before 3. So just a heads up, we've got some time to dig in on these projects, and we've got the team members here to answer questions if you want to get into some details. So the first project I wanted to highlight is that of overall parks planning for the waterfront. As was brought forward to council last night was the Royal Beach park plans associated with that comprehensive development. As you can see on the map on the screen, we have a gap along our waterfront with respect to waterfront parks. The first from the existing waterfront park along Cobourg Peninsula is it's actually road right of way there at the foot of Lagoon Road and Ocean Boulevard. That is used like park, but is proposed in the Waterfront Stewardship Plan, would be integrated into the park through the creation of what we're calling a Woonerf. It's a Dutch word for a pedestrian oriented street. The other gap there is right in front of Royal Beach. So that's Crown land that we're planning to integrate into the Royal Beach Park plan, as well as connecting with park lands to the south through a new waterfront lease. So currently our park along Cobourg Peninsula is a Crown lease that we achieve for the purposes of managing the park through the province. And the hope is that we're able to accomplish the same in front of Royal Beach. So you can see how that would pull together the entire waterfront from the Lagoon Bridge down to Royal Beach as part of an integrated park. I was hoping to be joined by Gord Beauvillier, our parks manager, but he sends his regrets. He's just away sick today. Just pause for any questions. So I'd like to invite my colleague Nafisa Rashfiandar to talk about this next item. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nafisa Rashfiandar. I'm the Parks Planner of the City of Colwood, and in partnership with Parks Canada and our Indigenous partner, we are working on pre-feasibility studies of the National Urban Parks. And the area is around the National Historic Site. The core objective of the projects are nature conservation, connecting people to the nature, and reconciliation with Indigenous people. So we are working on 3 key projects, including engagement regeneration strategy, active transportation studies, and engagement strategy. At this point, Colwood Waterfront and Ocean Boulevard are the key study areas that we are working on. And I will give it back to Ian.
Thank you for that. Mr. Borhill, is there opportunities for any questions in between? Is that?
Oh, by all means.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got some time. So
Yes.
I'd just like to invite the committee that if you do have any questions, please feel free to initiate your microphone, and we're certainly happy to. Oh, here we go, Mr. Grove.
Thank you, Chair. The perimeter park is close between Some Point and Royal Beach, I believe. It's hard to see because the diagram's small, but the gap between where the pump house there, the 2 color points, I'm a bit unclear about what that's going to be part of that trail system. Could you just talk about that and how the different pieces join up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Through the chair, and thank you for that question, Councillor Grove. Yes, so the Waterfront Stewardship Plan is proposing that it be integrated into the multi-use pathway, as well as areas for ecosystem regeneration. There's what we're calling the Wave Plaza proposed for the area in and around the pump station, primarily extending to the north of the pump station. And that would expand that area for activities at the waterfront that needed a flat level surface. It would also expand opportunities for people who use mobility devices to access the waterfront, and also access the beach through what's being proposed as an accessibility mat that would be accessed through that area.
I'd actually like to ask a question since you mentioned the. I did. Yeah, I did. Thank you. Yeah. I just actually wanted to ask a question about the pump station. I don't know if this is an appropriate time or not, but I had read in the report that in 2017, Colwood re-engaged with the company KWL to report on relocation of the pump station, and the proposed location was put on hold. So there's a location that's been identified with this new proposed multi-use pathway. And with the increased use in that area and the development such, do you see that there's going to be potentially an upgrade to that pump station coming much sooner than anticipated? Because I know its lifespan was like 2065. Are we incorporating that into our plans? I'm just curious. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perfect timing because our next slide is going
Excellent.
to talk about the pump station.
Thank you.
And I just introduce our colleague Tyler Pettipies, who is going to be leading not only this project, but the implementation phases of the multi-use pathway.
Just gonna write that question down so I can return to it.
Yeah, sorry, I just for, we have a question here, Farley, Mr. Cates, if I can.
Ian, for you, if you could comment on the, I mean, we could talk about the criticalness of traffic calming measures. Can you comment on the extent or the exact priority that will be given to traffic calming measures, and if this will be done in as serious a manner as is required, considering the load? We've lived there for 3 years. We've been in Victoria for 7. And I gotta say, the traffic, you know, because of COVID, it motivated a lot of people to attend to the waterfront. And so it's attracting a lot more people from Greater Victoria. And it's critical that we have some reasonable traffic calming measures, especially given the preponderance of young children at the beach, especially on the weekends. So could you just quickly comment on that?
Certainly, through the chair, and thank you for that question. I'll just maybe touch on the previous question and then get back to this one. And just suffice to say, there is going to be an assessment of the Ocean Boulevard Sanitary Station. Tyler can talk a little bit more about it, but that's coming. We're planning for a special committee meeting on May 18th. So there's going to be some additional information from our consultants. Now, on traffic calming, it's probably a good question for us to dive deeply into in the last item on the agenda. So that's the overview of the Waterfront Stewardship Plan. I can say that it was a major consideration when developing the plan. When we were doing outreach with stakeholders, we spoke to our local RCMP superintendent. He said this was the #1 driver for complaints to his department was speeding on Colwood Peninsula. So the main component to address that is the rightfully berm crossing that's proposed in the draft plan that would create an opportunity for traffic calming in the section that we see the highest speeds. There's also integration of new parking areas that would prompt people to slow down given the revisions to the cross section that would be entailed.
Thank you for answering that, Mr. Borhill. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, Mr. Grove.
Yeah, this is about the urban park in cooperation with Parks Canada question. Really, I'm kind of interested in knowing how this committee may help to encourage and grow this relationship, and if there's any more details about what it means downstream, because it's still for me very vague. I'm not sure if there's much material, but I'd love to know more, and it sounds very exciting. And I know council would like to, I would like to support that at the council level, and if there's something we can do other than communications, maybe. Anyway.
Sure, thank you. I ask you, Mr. Borhill, if you want to add any comment, but I start with our process that we are going through right now. We are talking to the partners as Parks Canada so far, but we will have our Indigenous partners that we will get along, and we will discuss the project further. But at some point we will have the community that they need to be engaged, and we need to get their interest, if they are interested in the parks and the projects, and share the outcomes and deliverable with them at some point. And then they can comment on it and they can have their words to say if they are interested and how they will be supporting of the 3 key projects that I already mentioned. But at this point, it's more like discussions with the partners, and there is no engagement going on yet. But we will definitely let the council know at some point, and we will commence some of the public engagement and the community engagement. Sorry, and I guess that this committee would be helpful to sort of bring out with some ideas at how we can get more people and residents involved in the project.
And Madam Chair, if I could I'll provide a bit more context backing up to how the National Urban Park project began. So we were informed, I guess it was back early 2021, that Parks Canada had designated, designated Colwood as one of 6 sites for a candidate National Urban Park. They're now talking about expanding that number, but we're still one of the primary sites proposed. As part of the process, that we've entered into a contribution agreement with Parks Canada that sees Parks Canada funding these 3 initial projects that will become part of the feasibility study. So we selected with them the active transportation improvement project, as well as the ecosystem regeneration project as complementary projects for the Waterfront Stewardship Plan. So the active transportation project is looking at how we can connect the northern terminus of the multi-use pathway at Lagoon Bridge up to Colwood Corners and the Galloping Goose. So at this point, we're looking at it potentially being a multi-use pathway again that uses the Ocean Boulevard cross section. The ecosystem regeneration project, as I said, is meant to complement what's called for in the draft Waterfront Stewardship Plan. And then lastly, as Nafisa noted, the engagement strategy is now being built with Parks Canada, and then we brought to this committee for feedback and recommendation to council.
Thank you for giving some backstory on that for the new committee. Mr. McKay.
In the north end, which D&D still has, and it's all gated off. What's the story with that? Are we ever going to get that? I know there's some issues, but I don't know all the current issues, but it just seems like it's an eyesore with an empty space with a fence around it. And I just wonder what the issue is with that.
Sure. So city staff have been in conversation with our counterparts at the Esquimalt Naval Base, and they have agreed to look at that site as a candidate for integration to our park. The holdup with respect to the fences coming down is related to potential concerns around the previous uses and a site conditions that they may need to address before they provide public access. So that may entail environmental assessment, a review for contaminated soils, and that type of work. So we understand it's on their list for sites that need this type of work, and we're in communication with them to, as you noted, remove the eyesore.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to get back. I don't want to beat it into the ground, but I think that this committee is really interested in making sure that we have that solid partnership relationship that you're speaking of. And I know that staff is obviously working with you already, which is just great. It's music to my ears. I don't know why for sure yet, because I don't know much about it, but it sure sounds awesome to tie that whole park area to ours in Colwood. I think that's wonderful. So I'd love to see this going forward in some way. So looking forward to that. Thank you. That's all. I just want to underline it one more time.
Thanks for the comment. Definitely, we are working with Ian and the other staff member to make sure that we are moving to the next step of the Waterfront Stewardship plan or draft, and then sort of find the gaps and then figure out like what are the extra work that needs to be done before any implementation.
I don't know what the issue is with the contamination because it was a former pub. Unless they have radioactive urinals in there, I don't know. But anyway, having said that, there is issues, there's bigger issues, and we can talk about it later. It's called degaussing cables. They run the full length of the lagoon. And that ran from the station was inside the pub, which I've seen when I was in my youth, and it runs the entire spine on the lagoon side all the way down to the other end for a full mile to where it terminated in the former degaussing hut. The cables are still there. And I questioned the manager at the time, I cannot remember his name, and he was tickled pink that he's going to send, the call was going to get this green or brownfield green, whatever you want to call it, to Colwood. And I says, well, what are you going to do with the degaussing cables? It was a pregnant pause. What do you know about the degaussing cables? I says, lots. There's 5 of them that run the full length. You got to remove them. Anyway, food for thought.
Okay, does anybody else have anything? No? Okay, Mr. Borhill, I think we can talk about there we go. Excellent.
Thank you for the initial introduction. My name is Tyler. I work in engineering. We've been supporting planning through this process and certainly looking forward to taking this to project execution phase. As part of the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan, there's going to be a detailed engineering analysis. And as part of that, there's going to be a technical memo on the sanitary lift station, which will speak to specifically the upgrades to the sanitary lift station or recommendation. What they did was look into the potential risks from tsunami hazards, white water flooding and blue water flooding, and made a recommendation for the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan for additional upgrades to protect against that vulnerability. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Anything else? If there's any questions.
Okay, that's. I think we're still trying to kill a little bit of time here.
So the next one is what we're calling coastal adaptation and flood risk mitigation. So the Capital Regional District, in partnership with Colwood, undertook a regional look at our coastal vulnerabilities relative to both tsunami and sea level rise, and particularly storms that we can expect that will be more intense as sea level rise has an effect. So we've got a really good set of data on both those types of flooding risks. Colwood, after the regional project was completed, hired the project team led by Associate Engineering that undertook the big study and paid a little bit extra to have a higher resolution modeling done. And we've got 1 to 5,000 scale floodplain mapping for Colwood. So the plan is that once the Waterfront Stewardship Plan is adopted, that we would be immediately moving to a coastal adaptation planning process, the goal of which would to improve our regulatory regime around mitigating flood risk along the coastline. That can include things like a vertical and horizontal setback from the waterfront for construction, as well as flood construction levels that we would integrate into our regulatory regime. That work would involve a lot of public engagement, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to start that this year, immediately following completion of the Waterfront Stewardship Plan.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Borhill? Mr. Cates, you look like you have a thought, but Mr. McKay beat you to it, so I'm gonna. If you just press your button there, I'll. There you go.
Oh. I just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on some of the types of measures you're thinking of at this point, and what kind of priority is being given to those measures? Because I'm very cognizant, having been a previous project manager, I'm certainly very cognizant of costs and balancing the numbers. So some of your thoughts on that I would appreciate.
Thank you for that question through the chair. So this project really is one at this stage has identified the risk. We've got what I would characterize as a very comprehensive set of floodplain maps. This project would take that information and then provide council with opportunities to operationalize it through, as I said, policy and regulation. We're lucky to have a robust set of provincial guidelines that states what the province feels is appropriate for municipalities to take on to protect communities from flooding risk. And so we would be following those guidelines to come forward with options for things like a flood construction level that would guide the development along the shoreline. As I said, this is a project that we see really needing to engage closely with property owners that are going to be directly affected. And that is not something we want to rush, certainly.
Back to the sewage lift station in regard to the flood mitigation, et cetera. What's the timeline for this new sewage lift station?
So I won't have to wait long for the assessment that Tyler mentioned. We're hoping to present that at a special meeting of this committee on May 18th.
And the only reason I ask that is we've gone down the road on this one before, and there's still a lot of life left in the station. I mean, should never have been placed there to start with, but there's mitigating circumstances why it was put there, and they were forced to do something about it, but there it is. But if we're looking to buy time, there's reports, I think our PALS group sent a report in there from our perspective of what it could do to extend the life, to try to mitigate any large capital cost at this point if it becomes dear. So I just wonder what's the time frame, because I know there's been different locations across the road and what have you for this station.
Thanks for that question, and feel free to jump up.
So certainly we want to see that pump station perform for its lifetime, which was 2065. Sorry. Which we want to see the pump station perform until its until its lifespan, which is 2065. Beyond that, I'm not privy to reports, but as part of this technical memo, it'll provide the recommendation to ensure that. So to protect against coastal storms and other measures, except unless we get the big one for the tsunami, then 2065. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add in terms of the work that's been done since that KWL report. So we've leveraged the sea level rise and storm modeling that we've undertaken for the park improvements and applied it to the lift station. So we're really trying to get that that intensive coastal engineering work that we've done on the park, showing benefits for protecting this infrastructure as well.
Okay. Waterfront pathway.
Okay, we've come to our last item on this section. Once again, I'll just ask my colleague Tyler to come up and really trying to, because this waterfront stewardship plan is close to being completed in terms of a draft being ready for, nearly ready for this committee to consider, recommending the council for engagement with the community on the draft. We're hoping to, get us thinking about implementation and elevating the role of our engineering colleagues insofar as they will be the ones that are leading the next steps in the plan implementation. So I think you want to. So as you heard, we've got $6 million that's been approved through a federal provincial grant to implement the waterfront multi-use pathway. Right now, we're looking at the costs that were put forward with that grant, as well as the updated costing that we'll be getting through the detailed coastal engineering report, and bringing forward the next steps to this committee for implementation of the waterfront multi-use pathway. Of course, the waterfront stewardship plan that calls for the waterfront pathway is still in draft form. So that is the immediate next step. But it's an exciting time to be doing work on the waterfront here in Colwood, in that we've got historically a large grant. I think the largest grant we've received for a capital project of this type in our history to undertake this work. So start thinking about this committee's role as a steering body, as stated in the terms of reference for implementation of both designs and work to implement this, which will be led by Tyler and his engineering colleagues.
Does anybody have any further comments at all? No? Oh, okay, question.
And I thank you, Chair.
Here, Madam Chair, if I could also introduce.
Yeah, let's have some more in the party.
More interest
in the party, yeah.
Hi, so I'm Joshua Bayless. I'm the manager of engineering. I'll be working with Tyler as we move forward in this project, and have worked with Ian and others. So
Thank you for introducing yourself.
I guess for Mr. Burhill, please, could you just clarify what sorts of things that you were talking about, input from this committee to the crew that's working on this plan, and maybe try to give us a little bit of an idea of what that might look like to help the conversation along here. But
yeah, thank you for that question through the chair. So really this committee is the steering committee for providing recommendations and strategic advice to council as it relates to the implementation of the waterfront stewardship plan, including the waterfront multi-use pathway. The plans that are, or the designs, I should say, that are included in the draft waterfront stewardship plan are very conceptual. There's going to be a series of design projects brought to bear involving multiple professions and areas of thought that will have some decision making that needs to be elevated to council. Those decisions are intended to be flowed through this committee, and you'll be given the opportunity to provide advice and recommendations. Yeah. Yeah.
So the direction will come back from council to the committee. The energy will come that the direction will flow that way, or are we supposed to make stuff up out of the blue and try to direct it? I guess both is good. We can come with any new ideas, or we are directed by council to contribute.
Thank you for that question to clarify. Yeah, so what we expect is that the project teams that will be working on implementation of the waterfront stewardship plan will bring elevations we'll elevate decisions to this committee with a recommendation and an opportunity for the committee to then recommend action to council or recommend options to council. So ultimately, council are the ones that get to make the decisions. Staff will be bringing decisions as part of a process to this committee as a step before they come to council.
Thank you. So it helped flesh out our agenda, which is good to know. That's the way we were looking at it. Thank you.
Ian, just to expand on what David was asking, will the committee then, this committee, be given the opportunity to be hearing comments from the general public directly, or will that be handled through different mechanism? I'm just wondering exactly how that's being handled, because I know there's a lot of discussion going on in the community, especially in Seaside, or whatever the neighborhood I live in is called. And especially for those who are on Ocean Boulevard and those who are on Anchorage. A lot of concerns there. So how exactly is that going to be handled?
Thank you for that question through the chair. I've actually spoken to some of them, I think, already in the last couple of weeks and invited them to attend the meeting or the committee meetings. This is a wonderful opportunity for the public to come and see how decisions are being made and have an opportunity to speak to them at the discretion of the chair. There's often an opportunity at the beginning of the meeting to allow the public to speak to issues that are on the agenda. And you know, it's a public meeting and agendas are made available to the public. So it does provide that venue for input, certainly.
Can you give us I know that there are some of us here at the table that have some ideas that we want to bring forward. I know in speaking with Sarah. Can you give us an idea of what we can expect at the next meeting? I know that we discussed at the beginning that today was mostly just informative. And the next meeting, we're going to have a little bit more opportunity to dive deeper into details. Can you just give us some examples or things that might be coming, just to maybe stimulate some questions for when we come back to the table? Thank you.
Thank you. So the Waterfront Stewardship Plan, as we'll get into in the next agenda item, Mr. DeGrief joins us, was presented to the former version of this committee, the Waterfront Coastal Processes Committee, in November of 2021 as a draft, with the recommendation that be brought forward to the public, stakeholders, and partners for input. The committee recommended to council that, and I'm paraphrasing, that a report to validate the performance of the plan relative to sea level rise be undertaken before that final step of engaging the public with the draft. Council endorsed that recommendation of the committee, and we're now at the final stages of completing that direction and compiling that detailed coastal engineering analysis. So that analysis will provide projections for long-term costs associated with operation and maintenance with the interventions proposed in the Waterfront Stewardship Plan, as well as proposing specific elevations and design features to mitigate against sea level rise and storm activity. So that's what's coming forward on the 18th, that draft, or excuse me, that detailed engineering report that was requested by council, as well as we'll bring the Waterfront Stewardship Plan back with a recommendation to move forward based on the recommendations of the coastal engineering report.
Thank you, Mr. Borhill. I actually think that's Paul DeGraaf behind you, who is our next presenter. So I'd like to welcome him to come up. Oh, sorry. Neve's got her hand up there.
Is there going to be an opportunity for us to have a look at these documents, even in draft form? You know?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the agenda package will go out either the Wednesday or the Thursday before the special meeting that's currently tentatively planned for May 18th.
Cool, thank you.
They do, yes. Yeah. Yeah, so just so everyone's clear, you will get notice when those come out. I would expect that you had emails with the agenda packages that were already sent to you. Yeah. So you want to keep an eye on your email for those agenda packages. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Paul DeGrief, our lead consultant and landscape architect that compiled the Waterfront Stewardship Plan, is here to go through it with us. We're lucky to have him. He's a very busy individual these days, also working for the District of Sanitary. He's going to walk us through a presentation that was made back in 2021 when we brought the draft plan to the former version of this committee. And yeah, please don't hold back in terms of questions. This is your opportunity to get to know the draft plan and be prepared for the decisions you'll be asked to give recommendation on next month. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Whoa. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm thrilled. I have to tell you the story of how I ended up here. Within a period of about half an hour, I got a phone call from Ian. I saw the announcement in the newspaper about the grant award to Colwood, and my email inbox just went totally nuts. And what it was is the newspaper had used some of the old drawings, some of the original drawings that we developed that showed all kinds of amenities in the lagoon, boating amenities and bridges. And the stewardship community, Rick, that you were asking about, I'm connected with through my role now at Sanitary, and my email just lit up. So I had people calling me saying, what is Colwood doing? They've gone back on their word. They're doing all this stuff they said they weren't going to do. And so it was just this hilarious half hour of my life where everything just went haywire. And at the end of the conversation with Ian, I said, well, hey, would you mind if I came and chatted with the new committee and met some of the new and not so new people, and so here I am. So it's great to be here, and thank you for having me, and also really great to see new staff at Colwood that are going to be here to help you implement. So just really quickly wanted to acknowledge that that we're on unceded territories of Esquimalt, Songhees and Beecher Bay, and I know Colwood has a tradition of collaborating with First Nations and engaging with them, and certainly encourage you to continue doing that through your work here, and look for those opportunities to invite them to participate as stewards, the original stewards of this land. So just really quickly about me, I have been a consultant in Victoria, or I had been a consultant in Victoria for 20 years, and went through kind of this transition where I sold my interests in my consulting firm. And as part of that transition, I actually took the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship project with me into my own practice. I was there for about a year and a half doing my thing and working with this awesome community. And then right at the end of, right when we were getting ready to put the polish on the draft, I got a great offer at the District of Sanitary, and that's where I'm a manager now. So a little bit of a different community, 173 parks, a massive park system. We've got 30 kilometers of marine shoreline. You can double that again if you add in the lakes. So all kinds of challenges. What I will say is Sanitary has an amazing stewardship program where we have lead stewards in our park system. They spend thousands of hours cleaning up our parks, taking invasive species out, doing ecological restoration work. not a single group associated with our shorelines. So this is a very unique body in BC. It's the only stewardship organization committee that's formalized around shoreline stewardship that I know of in the way that you're doing it. And that's, I think that's really worth applauding. So, so exciting to be here, and kudos to all of you for continuing this really great work. What else have I got here? I think I'll just launch right into my presentation. Actually, I have one more thing that I wanted to pitch here. On June 11th to 15th, an organization called Coastal Zone Canada. They're hosting the 2023 conference. It's a pretty neat organization. They have been running conferences around Canada for many years. I think this is their 14th or 15th iteration all over Canada, coast to coast. And they've got a pretty amazing lineup of speakers. So it's a 4-day conference. I'm speaking on the Tuesday, I think. Not about this project. I'm just part of the panel, but really encourage certainly staff and committee members to have a look at that conference. The website is coastalzonecanada.org. If you want more information on that. So, and they'll be talking about all the kinds of issues that you'll be dealing with as a committee. So, so I wanted to just give that a little plug. Okay, so when I talked to Ian, I essentially suggested that we dust off one of the old committee presentations that I would have given a year and a half ago, and just kind of bring it back out and talk about what it was that, you know, we had in our heads, and you know, we're trying to communicate with all of you and with the community about what it is that we wanted to do. And you know, as a landscape architect, that's kind of my job, is to try and understand what the community is working towards, and then help communicate that through images and diagrams and words and writing. So the Waterfront Stewardship Plan in its current form is, think of it as kind of the compendium of all of that thought and all of that background research, and then all of those conversations that went into to developing an idea. I think it's really cool that that idea has now been funded. That's a really amazing thing to get to that level, and once you get that first foot in the door, you know, hopefully as you build partnerships around this project, other funding sources will start to emerge too. So so that's just fantastic. So can I advance my own slides here? Okay, so I'm going to be a little rusty here, but feel free to interrupt and ask questions, or whatever you like. I'll keep my eye open if you're putting up your hand, and happy to answer questions as we go here. So this was a diagram that we used many times. It'll be familiar to some of you, and it was really a diagram that was designed to communicate a fairly sophisticated but heuristic approach, an iterative approach to design. And one of the things that people like Mr. Cates will hopefully appreciate, having been through some of the tough discussions around Lagoon Road and his neighborhood, and then other community members as well, and some of the environmental stakeholders, was putting ideas out there and then being willing to hear the response, gauge the response, and then make adjustments. And we went through that many times in this project, and sometimes it was a little bit painful, You know, I had a wonderful consulting team behind me. I like to joke with some of them that when it got particularly prickly, they would disappear and head for the hills, and they'd leave me to figure it out. But I'm teasing. We actually had really great support from a number of consultants in the team that I was working with, and we would go through this iterative process where we would refine the plans, bring them back, and I think that's an important part of a planning process that that allows a community to be brought in and feel like they're part of an authentic and integrable process that's not trying to hide anything. And so I hope that as you go back out to the community, that feeling still exists, and that you can continue to engage with the community in open dialogue and make the plan even better. So I'm just going to go past this. You can kind of see what our timeline was. Those are 2021 dates, I believe. We were hoping to go to council in December of 2021, so didn't quite make that mark. But
Well, we did take it to council. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. You're right. We took the draft to council. So I think you know, if you look at this project from the sort of 50,000 foot level and kind of go, okay, well, what were we trying to do here? What were we all about? I think for me, what I was hearing in this community and what I was trying to bring from my own expertise was to say, okay, well, let's do something really exciting here, but not in a way that will scare everyone, and not in a way that is going to chase away the funders. How can we do this in a way that's exciting, but that's grounded, that's innovative, but is going to be efficient cost-wise and implementable. And I think, you know, again, when you look at this landscape, yeah, Sanitary's got 30 kilometers of shoreline. This is really nice shoreline. This is high quality, world-class shoreline, and a plan that is respecting of that and celebrating that is really, I think, underpinning what this plan was all about. So, you know, some of those high points there, first Green Shores Ready Community Plan in BC. There's all kinds of little projects, demonstration projects around communities that are pursuing Green Shores certification. This was really putting forward, you know, let's plan this as a Green Shores initiative that's embracing the principles behind Green Shores. And if you'd like me to, I can get into more details on what Green Shores is all about. Part of that, major ecological restorations. You know, we're going to be doing things, we're going to be inviting people to be in a sensitive landscape. So how do we compensate for that? And the plan really embraces the notion of ecological restorations as compensatory to inviting people into this sensitive landscape and building it into something even better. And integrating those two things. Climate resiliency, Ian spoke into that a little bit. Leadership on site adaptive planning. So site adaptive planning, as I'm sure you all know, is written into the official community plan in Colwood. And this plan is really about demonstrating in a very important way, I think, what site adaptive planning means and how you go about doing it. Question?
You're reading my face. No, you had mentioned the Green Shores, that you'd be willing to elaborate on that a little bit more for those of us that might not be familiar with it. Can you?
I can do that. Yeah. So Green Shores is a program that is administered by the Stewardship Center of BC, a wonderful organization. They're funded through the Real Estate Foundation of BC, the provincial government, federal government. They get funding sources from all over the place. And they have developed two programs around Green Shores. One is called Green Shores for Homes. And it's kind of a program that's tailored to homeowners, waterfront homeowners. And it's I would say it's very accessible. It's a points-based system, kind of like the LEED program for buildings, where you can get points based on how green, I guess, your project is. And then there's a more robust program that is for shoreline development projects. So if Royal Beach, for example, was to pursue green shores, that's the program they would apply under. And there's a little bit more rigorous process of documentation that goes into that. So you're working with your consultants to develop plans and drawings and diagrams that actually prove out how you're going to achieve a set of points. And the whole program is really founded around 4 principles. I can't quote them for you, but they're on the website. Yeah. Oh, next slide. Oh, perfect. Oh, they're there. Excellent. Thank you. So preserve integrity of coastal processes. So again, that was a real driver early on in the waterfront stewardship project for Colwood. We talked a lot about sediment management. Rick and Glenn, you will remember John Harper, who is a coastal geomorphologist who is a mentor of mine and just one of the best coastal scientists in the province. He's just fantastic. So he helped us really understand how sediment moves on the shoreline and where some of the kind of quirky bits are, particularly up around the bridge. So that was really helpful. Maintaining and enhancing habitat diversity and function. So obviously being a migratory bird sanctuary, habitat quality is critical moving forward in the designs that you develop, the detailed designs that you develop. And there's all kinds of ways of improving habitat just through species selection and different strategies for how you lay out your planting design. So that's a component of green shores. Minimizing or reducing pollutants, thinking about things like, accidents happen. It's a busy roadway. How do you deal with oil spills? Is there a response plan? Where does the runoff water go to, and how is it treated before it enters the lagoon? All of those little things can be incorporated into a design. And then reducing cumulative impacts. That element really applies to shorelines where you have, for example, houses lined up along the shoreline, each one of which, if it builds a seawall, all of those cumulative impacts add up and really start to degrade a beach quickly. You don't have that so much in this plan, but if we were to propose, shoreline hardening or other kinds of measures here, those would have a dramatic cumulative impact. Does that help? Okay. Okay, so some of the major ecological restorations, salt marsh restoration on the backside or on the lagoon side of the spit, dune restoration on the marine side, some really kind of conceptual cross sections that show how that would look. Really important to understand that the success of those types of restoration efforts need to be tied to how you manage people and pets. I am in the throes of a people, pets, and parks project in Sanitary right now, and I can tell you it's quite an undertaking and quite a community conversation. So thinking through those kinds of issues now and starting to engage your community and what that means, it's not that you're trying to keep people out of the landscape. You're creating a park. Parks are for people. But thinking very carefully about how you integrate people into a landscape in a way that doesn't degrade what you've just built is really critical to the success. Yes.
Just going to let Mr. McKay here has a question.
Absolutely.
Oh, the dune restoration. Just a point in here is that are we maintaining what we got, or are we adding to? Because the dunes is a feral ingredient to the lagoon. They're never there. It was because of the gravel pit operations which created the dunes and created the sandy beach that a lot of us of older generation had a sandy beach for a whole generation from 1909 onward. Since the gravel pit ceased dumping sand in the mid-70s, it's going back to what it was. The lagoon was going back to what it was before, which is a cobblestone beach, just like we have it within Spit. So my question is, where are we going with these dunes? Are we adding to, or are we just remaining just the way it is, or I'm a little confused?
Great question. Thank you, Mr. McKay. So there's if you start getting into the technical areas of ecological restoration, I actually started my career after university as a coal mine reclamation planner. And the word reclamation is about reclaiming to some land use that didn't exist prior to disturbance. Restoration is really about restoring to what was there before. So if you think of those as kind of two ends of the spectrum, trying to return the land to something that's meaningful, that's beneficial, that has value, that wasn't there before, versus a type of landscape that existed previously, and that's the value that you're trying to return to. Those are two different objectives in ecological restoration. So the dune, you're absolutely right. It was not, that's not an indigenous or native type of landscape that would have existed on the lagoon, so far as we understand it from the work we did with John Harper and others. But that's not to say that it's not a novel ecosystem type that we could use to actually help restore this landscape. So dune systems are beautiful. They will help protect the infrastructure that's being put onto the spit behind the dune system. They can be stabilized with dune grass, which is a very robust species that colonizes very quickly. So when we put the dunes forward as a enhancement, so we're talking about adding sand to the existing dunes and enhancing them. It was really thought of as an element that's novel, a novel ecosystem type, and that's also a term that's used in the ecological restoration community. Novel ecosystems, something different than what existed in a native landscape setting.
Yeah, my question relates to a concern I think a lot of us have regarding sea level rise and regarding the issues of climate change. And I gotta say, in the 3-4 years we've been living where we are in Ocean Boulevard, we've seen a greater number of severe storms. It's definitely increasing. So I'm wondering how one reconciles things such as dune restoration with the fact that, as you stated, what existed years ago, maybe something closer. I think you're referencing Whiff and Spit out in Souk.
Well, or the other side of the Scrum, going down the lagoon side. It's all cobblestone.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering how we reconcile that, and whether we're just fighting this battle where the implications for City of Colwood is considerable ongoing maintenance. And so you just comment on that.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for the question. I think for me, one of the key objectives here is resiliency. So when you're developing a plan like this, I think the presumption is that is a community asset that is worth investing in. It's treasured. And then the question becomes, okay, in the face of stress, how do we manage that space in a way that allows us to continue using it, but that doesn't break the bank, and that protects people? There's definitely an element of public welfare and safety here. And that's where our colleagues in engineering are really important to bring to the table through the detailed design process. I heard a little bit about questions around traffic calming. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in traffic calming measures. I look around. I can see things that I think work very effectively. They help slow me down, but I can't tell you statistically which ones work better than others, or which ones are appropriate for this particular landscape setting. That's where I need my colleagues to assist. What I can tell you is that I do have experience with restoration, ecological restoration. And when we start to look at ways to restore landscapes, we're really looking for resiliency. Probably one of the best examples, analogs that I can give is in my previous business partner was a fisheries biologist, and he was doing a lot of restoration work through the 80s and 90s, where they would go into creeks and they would cable boulders and root wads to the bank, and they would try and create complexing in the stream system to create fish habitat. They'd go back the next year to look at their project and there's nothing left, right? And it's because there was a lack of appreciation of understanding how the system functioned and what the stressors were, and then how to design in a way that responds to those and makes the system more resilient. So that's site adaptive planning in a nutshell. You're trying to understand the energy systems in the landscape, and then you're designing in a way that responds to those. So the dune system that we're proposing isn't intended to, it's not intended to be a seawall. It's not intended to stop the ocean. You're going to get logs thrown over those dunes. You're going to get, in big events, you could even get overtopping of those dunes. But the plant community on an established dune is going to be quite resilient. And it's going to help make the infrastructure that you're building behind the dune system more resilient as well.
Paul, I don't want to interrupt you, but we do have a question here. Neve online.
Hey, I know DFO love dune restoration under the Fisheries Act for habitat compensation. So I assume that they have a part to play in this as well. But I was just wondering, are we as far along as we know kind of what this looks like for long-term monitoring for the success rate of these, or is that all in the works?
I think that's a really great question for the committee and the detailed design team to explore. Monitoring, absolutely essential to a successful restoration program. Well beyond actually, I think we did talk about monitoring programs as one of the policy recommendations.
Yeah, if I could jump in, Madam Chair, the detailed coastal engineering analysis that the previous council asked us to undertake actually dives quite deeply into the technical side of how this dune restoration needs to be constructed to be resilient to the expected storms that we're going to be seeing in the future. So really, we're looking at this being an engineered dune restoration program, and we'll get to explore that further at the next meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Paul and company, just as a historical footnote, sea level rise in regard to storm surge and king tides. The bookmark in history, if you want to use that term, is on the lagoon on the inside. And you can tell, if you walk along there, you can see logs, like old logs, that you can see where they've come up, and when the tide came out, they stayed there. It's remarkable how high that was. And they're old logs, they're rotting. Combined with that is when they put the big degaussing station in. The gauzing hut was built up about 6 or 8 feet. And the reason they did that is because whoever had the smarts in the late 40s thought, we could have a storm surge here. We don't want to wipe out all this equipment. So hence that, like, it looked like an outhouse, trust me, it was built upon that little knoll for that very purpose. But where I'm getting at is that you can see history as a bookmark in a page. You look and see all those logs, those old logs, the highest point they've come to. That is extremely high. And I can imagine what the storms that went on back then that would have caused that.
Thank you. And I learned a ton from you, Mr. McKay, throughout the process. So I continue to, so thank you. I've talked about site adaptive planning. I won't elaborate on that further. And Ian I thought did an excellent job of talking about accessibility and accessibility improvements there. Again, happy to answer questions, but I thought Ian did a great job of speaking to that. So throughout the plan development, we were looking to existing policies, existing programs in in Colwood to make sure that we were consistent with those programs and policies. And so I think that all that to say that I certainly have a high degree of confidence that Colwood's heading in the right direction, that there's consistency with what the community has said in the past. One thing I will say that I'm learning very quickly is that communities change very quickly, and making presumptions that a plan that was developed 5 years ago is fully understood by the community that exists today is naive. So it's not to say that the plan should be changed or that it's a bad plan. It's just to say that the communities do change, and it's important to acknowledge that. And when you're engaging with the community, understand that some members of the community may have no idea what you're talking about. And yeah, so even just my coming here today is part of that acknowledgement. As there's new committee members, there's new staff members, maybe there's value in just spending a bit of time talking to you today and answering some questions. So next steps, I think, I just want to reiterate, I'm super excited for Colwood. I think that it's just delightful to have seen this project get funding. Encourage you to go at it hard and to work hard with an open mind. Engage with First Nations, pursue partnerships. I'm delighted to see that Colwood's moving forward with Parks Canada. I was fortunate enough to have had some of those early conversations with Parks Canada, and at that time even it was exciting to hear what was coming down. And then the ongoing coastal resiliency planning, a critical part of this plan. And then don't forget operations and maintenance and bylaw, the enforcement, the dreaded enforcement. Those two key components are so critical in a municipal context. How are the guys going to actually maintain this? What's the equipment that's needed, and how is bylaw going to actually be able to enforce the policies and plans that you're developing? That's such a key part of the People, Pets and Parks project that I mentioned, is making sure that we're engaging with our bylaw enforcement folks. Phase design and construction. So again, great to see that Colwood's brought on new staff. They seem really engaged. They're here listening, which is great. And of course, part of that is going through this detailed design process, working with with consultants that can answer the right questions as you're engaging consultants about ecological restoration, putting those teams together, and then working through that construction process with qualified contractors. So it's going to be exciting. So just to really sum up here, the waterfront path, of course, was always envisioned as this defining element of the plan, being able to walk from Royal Beach to Fort Rod Hill and back in a safe and enjoyable space, and with different types of experiences along the way. So that was one of the considerations when we took the path from the waterfront side, starting at the pump station, brought it halfway along, and then flipped it to the other side. It's varying the experience. It's trying to create a rich type of experience as you're moving through that landscape. It's not to say that people can't still walk on the beach the whole way along, but the pathway itself is varied and diverse in experience. Thinking carefully about surfacing materials, widths, and all of those design considerations that go into creating successful open space. And then shared spaces and universally accessible design. So I think I'll just really quickly go through these sub-area designs. Some conversation already in this meeting about them, but if we need to, I can always come click back and answer specific questions. So we really divided the waterfront up into segments of shoreline that we felt were reasonable from a phasing perspective. That's really where the rationale behind the chopping it up into bits came from. So South Beach, really the focus in this section is improvements to the roadway, a few minor amenity improvements in the open space, and then trail and dune development happening together. The Riflery Berm crossing, for those of you that don't know about the Riflery Berm, there's a little bit of homework and reading for you to do there. Really interesting history. And the crossing there is, as I mentioned, taking that user experience from the waterfront side to the lagoon side, or vice versa, depending on the direction. And then the north end, you'll note that we had the D&D property blocked off as a mysterious white block. And at the time that 2 years ago that we were working on this, so I'm glad to hear that conversation is advancing too at the staff level. Moving down to the Millburn area, down towards the south of Lagoon Road and the pump station, looking at a pathway configuration and parking configuration that improves some of the sept head. Sept head, for those of you who don't know, is a program around designing in a way that reduces crime and nefarious activities. The acronym is Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. So that was really the lens that was applied here, is can we create a space that is a little bit more organized, that has good visibility, and that puts parking and road safety in a way that makes some significant improvements. And then the Warnorth down at the south end that allows cars and people to be together in a safe way. Flipping across to the other side of the lagoon, we did look at Lagoon West Park. Really the impetus here was natural area, so keeping most of the park as natural open space. And then some minor amenity improvements. Do you want to interrupt me here to take the question? Sure.
Do I dare bring up the Hope Bridge?
I'm happy to speak to it. I'm I won't be revising the plan for you. How's that?
I know that was in one of the original designs. I know Ian and I have had considerable discussions about this. I myself, at the time, think that's an excellent component with Pitt Park over to the lagoon. And I've heard all the reasons why you can't do it, and I disagree with all of them. But I think that is not going to, as you'd say, Ian, we're not going to die on this hill for this one, but I'm just putting my 2 bits worth, and I think that would be an absolutely stellar addition to this plan.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. I respect your tenacity and the fact that you keep bringing it back. When I did the illustration, I fell in love with it. And what I can tell you is that all of those emails that ended up in my inbox were all about the bridge. So there's an entire environmental stewardship community that you would be engaging. But you know, I never say never. I don't know.
And if I could add, Madam Chair, so part of the feedback they received was around that being one of the most sensitive parts of the lagoon ecosystem for migratory birds and other wildlife. So as wonderful as an idea it was in terms of getting people from Cobourg Peninsula to Lagoon West Park, it is something that has challenges with respect to those environmental impacts, as well as the potential feasibility of it being permitted. That's another thing that we're not sure would even be possible relative to the approvals we'd have to receive from other levels of government.
Thanks for that clarification, Ian.
Just going to let Mr. Cates jump in with a question.
I'd love to have a debate on that one day. And I know we've debated it in our neighborhood, but I know the feds are definitely going to have a major say on that. And I would never see that being approved in a million years. But the biggest concern with any kind of linkage there is I have to throw this in, is just dealing with human nature. And that gets into the negatives of that. But yeah, I just never see the feds going along with something like that.
Yes, thanks for your comment. One more.
Paul, welcome back. It's been a long process. I come from private industry, and sometimes I feel that things move not only cautiously but slowly because of fears of outside forces, that the clashes that happen in situations like this over a project like this. But one thing we had talked about, and as coming from industry also, I always like to find ways to save people money. And we were talking about the membrane style of materials, membrane used with infill materials such as that are down by the degaussing boy shed, where that path was put in to that table, and then it was lost. But it's just been a good example for about the last 15 years. But I really wish we'd expand it, because as you said to us, that is very inexpensive for the longevity, the upkeep, and the wear and everything. On that north side, we're looking transitioning over to the northwest side. When you're talking about transitioning over to that other path, I would like to see potential for, instead of just saying we're going to do all this at once, that we do some early research and put in some areas of this and say, here, we'll do a quarter of a kilometer in this. You come back as a community and say that, and get their responses, because to me, there's a couple of things that are really important here that to me, in the early stages of this. One is the safety. One is the safety of that area for traffic intermingling with pedestrians. It's dangerous. There's people hit. They put that little 1 meter path on the side. It's great, warm and fuzzy feeling, but don't think the person coming towards you in a car is not looking out at the ships in the bay or looking at the ducks in the corner. And it is dangerous. But if we can get some of that just in an early stage, and people can say, look, this is something is starting here, because we have started basically zero. And then traffic calming and whatever else, is there. But I like this, the idea of that path being on the north side, along the inside. Get rid of those stupid cobbles. I was in the aggregate business for years, and walking on bloody 3-inch stones with a baby buggy just doesn't cut it. And there's a lot of area there that could be incorporated in that for very little expense, but at least it would be a start. And the same as the traffic calming. Let's get some traffic calming down there that works for everybody. I mean, we got some places we're doing it right now up off Hatley Drive, and it's like a chicane. And I took people asking what it is. I said, I think it's the new Indy race that's going to go around the Grattan Road and Hatley area for the people. That's what's happened. But there are good down Milburn Drive. I agree. Milburn Drive has that the little bumps there now, and it works fine. I think people want to go about it, but it does slow you down, and it makes you aware of it. You've got some really good ideas, but I really think it's time to put the shovels in the ground, and not this time next year. We're sitting here in the same room talking about the same stuff.
You're, Mr. Willing, you're making me wish I was a consultant again. These are excellent conversations, and you know, I think the consultants that you do choose are lucky. They're going to be well served by this committee. So last but not least, the boardwalk section, Perimeter Park. In my work at Sanitary, I've recently been kind of hounded by product suppliers, which tends to happen. I'm sure folks in engineering have the same thing, where product suppliers like to shop their wares. One of the best products I've seen, hands down, it's actually a manufacturer out of Milwaukee that's partnering with a local playground equipment supplier that does just excellent work, which is why I entertain the conversation. Has now developed a postless boardwalk system, modular boardwalk system, and it's one of the best products I've seen in a long time. Incredibly cost effective, even though it's manufactured in the States. So you know, this was envisioned as a custom fabricated boardwalk. There's all kinds of different options emerging for boardwalks, some very cost effective, some not so much. A custom option, the way we envisioned it, probably not so much, but potentially a very low impact, really wonderful feature that connects Royal Beach to the lagoon proper. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm more than happy to answer more questions. I just wanted to say that you know, this was a project that was very near and dear to my heart. I haven't told this to Ian yet, but I'm more than willing to make myself available to come back to this committee and talk again, to answer questions with staff. But I'm here. I live in the community, not in Colwood, but I'm not going anywhere. And yeah, just delighted to be back here with you and sharing an exciting project. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have to ask this question because I've asked 4 people in the past 2 weeks and nobody knows. What does a degaussing hut do?
Great question. Oh my goodness, we have willing answers. You guys will do a better job explaining than me, so go ahead.
The degaussing degaussing grid, actually, that's on the bottom of the ocean, was basically for straightening out all the lines. That's the easy way to describe it. It's electromagnetic buildup in ships that happens historically, and it used to affect their equipment, their navigation equipment, and whatever else. So what they would do is they would come in. The American Coast Guard used it quite a bit, didn't it, Rick? And our own Navy, and they used to come in and they'd run from just off the floats off the mouth of Esquimalt Harbor down towards Royal Beach, and they'd run back and forth for maybe a couple of hours, and then away they go. And then they come back about 2 or 3 months later, and they do the same thing all over again. And that grid was laid out on the bottom specifically for that.
maybe I'll just take a second to just speak to the cables. Oh, it's only me that can talk now. Isn't that great?
Our equipment is defective. We need a degaussing exercise. Somebody jumping out of a ship with jumper cables and running to the hut. You know, it's run.
Sorry about that. I'm just gonna see if we can get some help here. Yeah, I didn't touch anything. Nope.
Do we still speak or do we have to?
Well,
Okay.
No, we don't actually have to see. We can continue talking, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so in conjunction with what Glenn was saying, the degaussing station was built after the Second World War. Back to what?
yeah, online won't be able to hear us. That's the only problem.
Sorry.
All right, cease and desist.
We will take.
Well, if we hold tight, I can tell you a little story then, but nobody hears it.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we take a recess for
Recess? Yeah.
3 minutes?
For those who want, Glenn's got a story.
I have a quick little story about,
On the problem.
Okay, so where are we? We have to
Okay.
re-
Yes, for the sake of those that are online, thank you for your patience. We had a technical problem and we are now sorted out. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure where we left off, but I will let Paul continue. Thank you.
The degaussing station, in conjunction with what Glenn was saying, was instituted after the Second World War, and it was for the purpose of degaussing gyro navigation systems and compasses and all those kind of good things. Anyway, it's now defunct. There's modern technology has taken over that part of it. But in the meantime, we've got drawings showing the range where it was, and there was two components to it. There was the old pub, or the house near the bridge. There was components in there. There was no basement in that house. It was just on grade. The lowest spot was the furnace room and the area where they had the degaussing equipment. How do I know? Because I seen it, because my uncle was the caretaker. They had 5 cables running from there, those instruments, down to the back of the spine of the lagoon, all the way down to the degaussing hut. And in the degaussing hut, which I say, the best I can describe it, looked like an outhouse on top of that berm. And inside there was more equipment. And it was, I guess, testing what voltage or whatever it was testing for. And my uncle would have to go in there and just make sure the instruments are running. And that's the whole story behind it. But like I say, it's demobilized. So that's the story behind the degaussing station.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul, for being here. I think that was really informative. Great presentations. Thank you. I know I learned a lot today, and yeah, thank you to staff, corporate services, and to the committee for attending. And I think, again, like we mentioned in the beginning, that our next meeting, keep an eye on your email. You'll get a notification when the agenda package arrives in your inbox. So we'll get an opportunity to speak to things in more detail, kind of dive right into the details. So thank you, everybody. If I can get a motion to adjourn, do we need to do that? Yeah, I think we do. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.